Yo, YouTube, what's up with your boy, Sports and Fitness Rants? I'm back, guys. Click that like button. Subscribe to my channel. What's up, y'all? Welcome back, guys. Welcome back, man. Got another great video for you guys today. As usual, you guys know the deal on this channel, man. It's all about setting the record straight, stopping the lies, stopping the narratives, stopping them from rewriting their history. And in this video, man, we're going to talk about this Nikola Jokic versus Hakeem Olajuwon, debate that I see going on YouTube, man. And we all know that Kendrick Perkins, once again, Kendrick Perkins exposing this idea that because you play in the NBA, you know the game. I play in the NBA, you guys just fans. We know the game, you guys don't. Kendrick Perkins playing the NBA, guys. I want you guys to keep that in mind. And he came with some nonsensical list of the top 5 international players in NBA's history. Kendrick Perkins lists, his top 5 lists. There's some of the worst lists I've ever seen, guys, and I've done videos on some of his lists. Remember, the guy had a top 5 Defensive Player of the Year awards list, the top 5 defensive players in NBA's history list, and did not even have Hakeem Olajuwon or Bill Russell on that list, guys. That shows you right there you are exposed. But let's take it a step further here and talk about the international list. He had Nikola Jokic ranked above Hakeem Olajuwon in international players all time. And to me, that's not even a conversation, man. Nikola Jokic is not in the same conversation as Hakeem Olajuwon. He's not on the same level, guys, as Hakeem Olajuwon. And I thought that was pretty obvious. And I think most of you guys get that, man. I put that poll up, and you guys are educated. The people that come to my channel, you guys know the deal, man. And like 95% or 97%, whatever it was, you guys voted Hakeem Olajuwon over Nikola Jokic. And like we know it's not discussion, but we're going to talk about this video, guys. And I want to thank you guys, everyone across the world, everyone across the states has been supporting my channel. Much respect to all you guys out there, the true basketball fans, man, that know what we're doing here. It's all about standing up, man. Send the record straight, guys. We must continue to do this. So thanks to all you guys. Shout out to everybody in the membership, man. Like I said, guys, I'm truly humbled. I know my videos aren't fancy or flashy, man. So much respect for you guys for rolling with me, man. Thank you. And you guys know what to do. Turn the volume all the way up. Hit that play button. Remember, these videos are for educational purposes. And let's roll. So yes, guys, like I said, man, I wanted to do a brief response video, talking about, this Nikola Jokic over Hakeem Olajuwon nonsense. And we all know that's what it is. It's nonsense. And you guys know that because I looked at the voting on the poll that I put up, and I believe almost 2,000 people voted on this poll. And like I said, 90 whatever percent it was, voted Hakeem Olajuwon over Nikola Jokic as a greater all-time player. So, much respect to all you guys for getting it right, for understanding the obvious. It's obvious. It's not a debate. It's not a discussion. It's not close. None of this stuff. So, once again, Kendrick Perkins exposes himself and the idea that Gilbert Arenas putting out there, that these guys play in the NBA and we're just fans, so they know the game better than us. They know more than we do. We're biased, all this stuff. This is what a lot of these guys believe. And it's more of these newer age thinking where, we play in the league, you're just a fan. We're just a fan, so a fan can't understand the game. These guys act as if they were never fans of the NBA. They just decided to play basketball, I guess, because they were tall. And like I told you, that's the case for a lot of these guys. They're only playing basketball because they kind of had to. They had no choice. They're tall. They had to play basketball. They kind of fell into it. Once again, they were blessed with the genetics, right, with the athleticism that a lot of us will never have, would never had. Like I told you, when was the last time you saw a 7-foot tall person walking around? You don't see these guys like that, man. These guys are in the league, though. And a lot of them, like I said, they don't love the game or respect the game or even understand the history of the game. They don't know the history of the game. So when they make these lists, they're off. They're way off because they don't know the history. They only know the NBA from like 2010. They don't know anything before that. That's why they look retarded or ridiculous, kind of like when they make these lists. And Kendrick Perkins, once again, exposing the idea that just because you played in the league, that you know the game or you know the history of the game, or once again, these guys are going to be honest with you and they're going to hold on to their integrity. Once again, Kendrick Perkins is not educating the people out there. Now let's go through this. I'm trying to remember his list. I didn't write it down, guys, but I believe he had Nikola Jokic number 1. I believe he had Hakeem Olajuwon number 2. Then I believe he had Giannis Antetokounmpo. Then I believe he had Dirk Nowitzki, and then he had Manu Ginobili. Okay, now, there's a couple things wrong with this list. Off the jump, like we said, Hakeem Olajuwon, to me, and really to most people, is the greatest international basketball player in NBA's history, guys. Right? I think most people get that. Like I said, it's not a debate, it's not a discussion. But Kendrick Perkins has Nikola Jokic number 1. All right, we're going to discuss that. But he also had Giannis at number 3, and he had Dirk at number 4, and Manu Ginobili at number 5. Now, listen, I like Manu Ginobili. I talked about him in the video the other day. Much respect to Manu Ginobili. Like I said, he sacrificed, quote-unquote, numbers and stats to win, right? He could have easily been a starter, full-time starter for years on a lot of other organizations at that time. But he chose to stay on the Spurs, sacrifice numbers for winning. And he had a role. And he's one of the great sixth men of that era, of all time, man. Manu Ginobili, like I said, man, probably a top 15 shooting guard in NBA history, somewhere around there to me. So he's a solid player. There's no knock or disrespect to Manu Ginobili. But I do not believe Manu Ginobili is the fifth greatest international player in NBA history. Once again, I do not believe that Kendrick Perkins understands the history of the NBA or even knows these guys are international players. So I would put Steve Nash over Manu Ginobili. Steve Nash, maybe Kendrick Perkins doesn't know, was born in South Africa. It's not an American. So once again, he's an international player. To me, Steve Nash was greater than Manu Ginobili. So I would put Steve Nash above Manu Ginobili. How about Patrick Ewing? Patrick Ewing was born in Jamaica. Is Jamaica a U.S. country? So he's born in Jamaica, which is another country. So once again, that would be an international player. Patrick Ewing, to me, Patrick Ewing is greater than Manu Ginobili. Now, Dirk Nowitzki, Giannis, I don't really have a problem with them being on this list. Like I said, I would have had maybe Patrick Ewing on this list. Like I said, you could argue Steve Nash. But when we really want to focus on here is the Nikola Jokic, Hakeem Olajuwon disrespect. Or the disrespect to Hakeem Olajuwon by putting Nikola Jokic above him. Now, I will say this first. Nikola Jokic is not done playing his career. He still has years left to play. So who knows where Nikola Jokic will end up in the all-time rankings at the end of his career. But as of right now, there's no way in hell he's anywhere close to Hakeem Olajuwon. To me, not close to Hakeem Olajuwon. And there are some glaring, deficiencies in Nikola Jokic's game, right? So let's think about this, right? We can all go right to the defensive side of the ball, right? That's really the glaring difference between a Hakeem Olajuwon and Nikola Jokic. The defense is night and day. Night and day. A lot of people consider Hakeem Olajuwon, if not the greatest defender of all time, at least a top 2, top 3 defensive player in the history of the game. There's no one in the world that would ever call Nikola Jokic a top 50 defensive player in NBA's history. So that's how far away they are, the dynamic on the defensive side of the ball. So that leads me into the offensive side where a lot of people might think, oh, Nikola Jokic is a better shooter than Hakeem Olajuwon. Yes, maybe from the long range. Absolutely. Nikola Jokic can step out behind the line and knock down some shots. He's a really good free throw shooter, Nikola Jokic. So you can give the edge to Nikola Jokic shooting the ball. However, offense is not just about shooting, right? It's about different ways to shoot, different ways to get your shot off. And I think we can all agree that as skilled as Nikola Jokic is, the footwork and the offensive repertoire of Hakeem Olajuwon is greater than Nikola Jokic is. To me, Nikola Jokic is, like I said, a very skilled player. But when we talk about the offensive footwork, we talk about the move off of moves, right? The different moves, the different ways that you can get your shot up over players. Hakeem Olajuwon was greater. And why was Hakeem Olajuwon greater at these things? Because he had to be greater than Nikola Jokic. Who's Nikola Jokic being guarded by? Who is he being defended by in this weak, soft era? Oftentimes, he's being defended by shorter guys, smaller players, no one who's known as a defensive stalwart. There are no great big men in the era. Who's his competition? Rudy Gobert, Karl Anthony Towns, Joel Embiid. This is his competition at the center position. Brook Lopez. These are the centers right now. I'm not impressed with these guys that play the center position, right? Of all the big men of this era. It's not the same as the big men that Hakeem Olajuwon was facing in the 90s or even the 80s when he first came in, the mid to late 80s, when he's going against guys like Moses Malone and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Robert Parrish and Tree Rollins, Mark Eaton, right? Some of these big bodies, these are just big guys, and they played defense. They gave effort on the defensive end. Then not to mention the guys in the 90s, the Patrick Ewings, the David Robinsons, the Alonzo Mournings, the Shaquille O'Neals, the Ronnie Cycles, the Rick Smiths, the Brad Daughtys. These are really good centers. The Kembe Mutombo, all-time great centers. And a lot of those guys are all-time great defenders at that position. Nikola Jokic has never gone against somebody like a David Robinson. He hasn't gone against someone like a Patrick Ewing or a Shaquille O'Neal, right? A Dikembe Mutombo or a Moses Malone or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He isn't winning against anyone like these guys. Hakeem Olajuwon was battling against those guys night in and night out and coming out on top more often than not. All the great centers that played in the 80s and the 90s, right? The guys that were in that transition, not the Kareems or the Moses, but the guys that were coming from the 80s into the 90s. Hakeem Olajuwon was greater than all of them. And that was a great era for centers. So when we talk about the overall game, Hakeem Olajuwon had to be greater on offense. He had to be more crafty, right? He had to have more moves because the defense he was going against, right? They were a lot more physical. They could elbow you and forearm and put their shoulder into you, put their knee into you, all these things. They could hit you. No fouls called. The game was more physical. Guys took more pride in defense. They were just greater defenders at that time. So Hakeem Olajuwon had to adapt and develop an overall offensive game. To me, greater than Nikola Jokic. Meanwhile, while Nikola Jokic might have the edge on the shooting outside, the overall mid-range game, the overall offensive arsenal, to me, goes to Hakeem Olajuwon. Now, the playmaking ability of Nikola Jokic, I don't think we can deny that. And I don't think anyone will say Hakeem Olajuwon was a greater playmaker than Nikola Jokic. If Hakeem Olajuwon had a weakness to his game, you could say that would be part of his weakness, his playmaking ability. Once again, at that position, is he one of the great playmakers at the center position? No. Was he greater than a Will Chamberlain playmaking? Was he a greater passer than a Nikola Jokic at that position? You know, some of these other guys, Vlade Divac or Arvydas Sabonis, some of these guys that could pass the ball out of the center position. So if we think about that, to me, that may be where you can exploit or say Nikola Jokic has Hakeem Olajuwon beaten the playmaking aspect. Absolutely. I think that Nikola Jokic's passing ability is superior to Hakeem Olajuwon's. Once again, Hakeem Olajuwon played in an era where there were traditional point guards, where guys played point guard, right? Whereas now, Nikola Jokic is essentially the point guard for his team. Jamal Murray's not a point guard, a traditional point guard per se. He's more of an offensive-minded player. Nikola Jokic is the guy that's dropping the dimes and setting up his teammates. That wasn't the case for Hakeem Olajuwon, right? He played with guys like Sam Cassell and Kenny the Jet Smith, some of these other guys that were true point guards that played the point guard position, right? They facilitated the ball. That wasn't the way that Hakeem Olajuwon played the game, but I think we all know that Nikola Jokic is a greater playmaker, passer than Hakeem Olajuwon. But if we include playmaking, right, in the passing aspect, and we think about Hakeem Olajuwon in the post, for example, Hakeem Olajuwon was very good in the post, which allowed him to make plays, be a playmaker out of the post. And we also must talk or take into account Hakeem Olajuwon's playmaking on the defensive end. Once again, being a playmaker on both sides of the ball, more so than in Nikola Jokic. So meanwhile, Nikola Jokic might have the greater passing ability, right? To me, when we talk about the playmaking along with passing, Hakeem Olajuwon can hold his own because, like I said, the plays that he can make out of the post, double teaming, his quick decision-making, he also made a lot of defensive plays, right? Blocking shots, getting the team out in the fast break, creating steals. Hakeem Olajuwon is one of the few players in the history of the game that could create blocks and steals at a high level. So not only was he a stout defensive player, like a stout defender, one-on-one defender, he was also an excellent team defender. He could also create many steals, many blocks. This is what allows him to make plays on both sides of the ball, which allowed him, or which earned him, the label of one of the all-time great two-way players in the history of the game. That's not Nikola Jokic. He's not one of the greatest two-way players. He's a very great offensive center. The things he can do passing the ball at that position and shooting, excellent. But once again, in this era, the game is played differently, and Nikola Jokic is a liability on the defensive end, or he would have been a liability in the previous eras. In this era, he's not really a liability per se. He has the long arms, the height, and he's a big body, so he can stand there, clog up lanes, but he's not athletic, and he doesn't really have the defensive skills or hustle of a lot of the great players. So back in the 80s and 90s, he would have been exposed, and he would have been a liability on the court in those eras because he would have had to have played defense. He's going to get tested. In this era, he's not challenged or tested. He would have had to guard Patrick Ewing. He would have to guard Hakeem Olajuwon. He would have had to guard David Robinson or Shaquille O'Neal. He had to guard these guys that are offensive-minded players also, and they play defense. These are two-way players. You're going to have to try to stop Brad Daugherty, right? You're going to have to try to stop a Robert Parrish. You got to try to stop those guys. So you're going to have to play defense, not just offense. So as you guys can see, I don't think it's close. I don't think I need to go into any more depth on this. Like I said, you guys got it. You guys voted. You guys know the deal. It wasn't a close vote. So much respect to all you guys out there. Subscribe to my channel, all the subscribers, all the fans. Thank you very much, guys. You guys understand. Nikola Jokic is not greater than Hakeem Olajuwon. And I'll be honest, guys, I don't think there's really anything Nikola Jokic could do to be greater than Hakeem Olajuwon. He could win 2-3 more championships, 2 more MVPs. It's not going to make a difference. Once again, I asked the Nikola Jokic fans out there, and this is not a knock video on Nikola Jokic. I've given him his props in this video, and I've given him his props on his channel. But once again, are we to believe that Nikola Jokic in the 90s is winning 3 MVPs, guys? So if they want to say, oh, Nikola Jokic has 3 MVPs, Hakeem Olajuwon won 1, once again, let's think about the eras here. To me, Nikola Jokic is not winning any MVPs in the 90s, guys. 0. That's not saying that he's not a great player. There are many great players that didn't win MVPs, guys. Many great players that did not win MVPs in the 90s. John Stockton never won MVP. Clyde Drexler never won one. Dominique Wilkins never won an MVP, right? These guys never won MVPs. Patrick Ewing never won an MVP. So a lot of great players never won MVP. Shaquille O'Neal never won an MVP in the 90s. Never did, guys. Grant Hill never won an MVP. Jason Kidd didn't win an MVP in the 90s. Scottie Pippen never won an MVP in the 90s, right? Tim Hardaway, Alonzo Mourning. These guys never won MVPs, and they're great players. They didn't win MVP. Gary Payton never won MVP. So when we do the MVP trophies, let's put it in perspective and give some context here. In the 90s, Nikola Jokic is not winning MVPs, definitely not winning 3 over Hakeem Olajuwon, David Robinson, Karl Malone, Michael Jordan, Charles Barkley, Shaquille O'Neal, Patrick Ewing, Clyde Drexler, John Stockton, Reggie Miller. You're not winning MVPs over all of these great players. There's a lot of competition there. That's why these guys didn't win MVPs or championships. Was because the era was weak. So Hakeem Olajuwon's 1 MVP, once again, is more valuable than Nikola Jokic's 3 MVPs. Who did he beat for these MVPs? Luka Doncic? Joel Embiid? Jason Tatum? Who was he going against for MVPs? SGA? I'm not impressed. I'm not impressed, man. Once again, he has 3 MVPs. He's an all-time great player for this era, guys. This is where this era gets exposed. Remember, James Harden won an MVP in 2018. He didn't win an MVP in the 90s. Russell Westbrook won an MVP. He's not winning an MVP in the 90s, guys. He's not. Joel Embiid, do you think Joel Embiid's winning an MVP in the 90s? Playing 50 games every season? Flopping around, being that frail and soft? Going against those legit tough centers? It wouldn't happen. Wouldn't happen. So once again, Nikola Jokic is a great player, but Kendrick Perkins exposed himself again. Hakeem Olajuwon is the greatest international player in NBA's history. It's not even a question. And like I said, I would not put Manu Ginobili on that list. I would have had Patrick Ewing on that list before I had Manu Ginobili. I would have had Steve Nash on that list before I had Manu Ginobili. And that's just off the top of my head, guys. I can't really, think of other players that were born in other countries that may have been greater. I mean, listen, we could even probably say that Drazen Petrovic would have been greater than Manu Ginobili. Was his NBA career as great as Manu Ginobili's? No, we really can't say that because he didn't really have a full career in the NBA. But if you talk about the international and the glimpses that he showed, 91, 92, I think hands down you could have said that Drazen Petrovic was going to be a greater NBA player than Manu Ginobili, guys. And he's a foreign player. Arvydas Sabonis was a greater player. Right? I mean, Arvydas Sabonis didn't even come into the NBA until what? He was like 35 years old on the Portland Trailblazers or something like that. He came already after all these injuries. He was on his last legs. And the man still showed the flash of the skills that he had, the all-around game of Arvydas Sabonis. Remember, he was on the, I think he was on the Russian team or the Lithuania. I can't remember what team he was on in 92 when the USA Dream Team was playing the Olympics. They played against a young Arvydas Sabonis in 92. So when they say that the USA Dream Team didn't play against anybody in 92, they played against Drazen Petrovic and Tony Kukoc, who the LeBron James fans love to hype up as this great player. They played against him. They played against Arvydas Sabonis, who's one of the legendary European big men in history of European basketball. They played against these guys, man. So once again, shout out to all you guys out there that voted. You guys know the deal. Hakeem Olajuwon is easily greater than Nikola Jokic. And that's not a knock on Nikola Jokic. When we do these videos, we're not tearing down these guys. I didn't tear down Nikola Jokic. I stated the obvious. I stated the facts. The facts. Hakeem Olajuwon is the greater overall player. Rebounding the basketball, defensively, the overall offensive arsenal, the toughness of Hakeem Olajuwon. As far as, Nikola Jokic, I told you guys, I said, Nikola Jokic to me could play in the 80s and the 90s because of his mentality. He's not a soft dude. He's tough. You know what I'm saying? That's how he comes across to me. So mentally, he could play in that era. I'm just telling you, accolades-wise and dominance-wise, he would not dominate the way he's dominating these guys today in that era. And it's obvious the competition is not as stiff, especially at his position. The game is different. He would have, like I said, he would have been exposed on the defensive end back in them days. Those just the facts, guys. You guys know the deal, man. I'll catch you guys on the next one.